Join our incredible moms who have mastered the art of balancing motherhood in today's episode of We Time Convo.
My name is Debbie.
This is Liza.
Moms sharing inspiring stories, practical tips, and a few hilarious anecdotes. And it all begins now.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to We Time Convo. Thanks for joining us today.
This is Liza.
And this is Debbie.
Debbie.
Yes.
It's so crazy. It's been a while since it's just been me and you.
I know.
We've always had guests, which were great, but how have you been?
I've been good.
You started a new job?
Super busy. Started a job. I want to say it's now over 2 months. It's pretty wild. Yes, it's been quick and lots going on, and there is no downtime.
Just getting back into the grind, right? And juggling things.
Yes. I feel like we got together with our mommy friends for a special occasion for one of our nephews, really, because we saw him grow up. And so it was a great opportunity, and it just kind of hit me that I hadn't seen a lot of you, all of us together in a long time.
That was the first time that we've all been together, and I want to say at least a year, maybe.
Really?
Yeah, because it's always someone's out, vacationing. Something has something going. So that was nice.
Yes. No, it was really nice. It was really nice to, get together and see everybody. And unfortunately, I did not have a chance to talk to everyone that I wanted to and spend that time because it was still really quick. Yeah, I missed everybody. And it was really nice.
It's June. We're halfway through the year. It's crazy.
Well, that's a good segue because we're actually winding down. Can you believe we're coming close to a year of starting this podcast?
Yeah, it's almost a year anniversary. So we are finally getting to take a break.
Yes, it's winding down. You and Irene will be taking a really good break in the next couple of weeks.
We're going to miss you.
I know I'm going to be missing you guys, but I'm very excited. The summer's going to, I think, just go by just as quickly.
Yes.
Right? So there is a wind down of our recording. We will not pick up until September, right?
So the month of August, we will take a nice long break. So don't miss us. Don't miss us too long. Just, you can always go back and listen to the other episodes, So today's topic can be a little sensitive, can sound a little insensitive, but it happens, right?
Yes. But wait, before you jump into the topic, how did you come across this topic?
I didn't come across it. Our producer, Irene, did.
So this is a topic that she actually shared with us. And we both kind of did a little bit of a pause, right? Mm-hmm. Because it is a sensitive topic.
So the topic for today is the regret of parenthood. Parents who regret having children.
Yes. And that's a very kind of taboo topic, right? Because as parents, we obviously love our kids. But if you could go back, would you have kids again? And I guess, is there a feel of regret of having kids?
I feel like as a parent, you feel some type of regret at least once in your whole time of being a parent. There has to be what was I thinking? This kid's driving me crazy. I could be alone. I don't have to deal with this. I feel like at least once in your lifetime, there is a parent out there that has thought this. And I think this every day of my life. When Violet pisses me off, when Ava's, PMSing, I'm like, I could be single right now. I could be sitting on the beach.
I'm not supposed to deal with this.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. Again, like you said, I love my kids.
Yes.
I can't imagine my life not being a mom.
Yes.
But there are times where I don't want to be a mom.
Yes. Because I was thinking about this as well. Is some of the regret of having a child very specific to the child, or the attachment that you have to the other parent, right? Because here's the deal. When you have a child, you are attached to another person, whether you like it or not, right? For pretty much ever, right? Because you guys have a child together. Mm-hmm. So is there a part of regret because of obviously that attachment to the other party?
To the other parent?
Yes. Yes, I don't know. I think when I think about regret, it's not necessarily to the child. Well, and mind you, I only have one. So I think that helps in regards to like when you have more than one, right? Yeah. Because then you can manage like with one. And by the way, I feel sometimes my one is like 3.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, I don't know. That's another thought as well. I had Vanessa at a later age, and I knew I wanted a child. Like I remember making that conscious decision of like, I want to have a child. So like, I don't know if that plays into it, because I don't necessarily, I feel like I did all the things that I wanted to do. Now, don't get me wrong. I think there's a lot of things about having a child that no one can ever prepare you for. Like no matter how somebody explains it to you, you don't know how much more of you're giving away. Yeah. Does that make sense?
So for me, same thing. People are like, oh, you won't sleep. You want this. And I'm like, I don't sleep anyways. I've been out to the club till 3 a.m, back to back Thursday, Friday. And then when I had kids, it's like, it's on somebody else's time. It's not my time. Mm-hmm. Like somebody else is telling me when I need to sleep. Somebody else is telling me when I can eat. Someone else is telling me when I can have a break. Mm-hmm. People don't like that. And they don't realize that until they actually have kids, right? Yes. Because you make the decision. I'm going to go out tonight. I'm not going to sleep. You make the decisions for yourself. And now you have this little person or peoples mm-hmm. that are depending on you to make that decision for them, depending on you to keep them alive. Yes. Just to keep him here on this earth. Right? Yes. I think a lot of it is that it's like it sinks in and you're like, shit, like you signed up for that. Yeah. Like you are responsible for this person. Yes. Yeah. No, I get you. Yeah. And I think that's why for me, it wasn't too like, I don't necessarily feel like I fall into the regret bucket, because I consciously made a decision that I wanted to have a child when I had Vanessa. So I don't have regrets. I think from my perspective, it's more around, I was still like naive in realizing how much she was going to take from me. That's just it. I knew it was going to take something. I knew it was going to be a lot, but you just don't realize like how much. I mean, that was my perspective. So it's very interesting. I asked a question to my significant other, and I asked him like, because obviously we're doing a recording and we were going to talk about this topic. And I said, do you regret having kids? And he's like, nope, not at all. And then I said, okay. And I rephrased it and I said, okay, if you could turn it back, would you have kids? And he's like, no. I go, well, why? And he goes, well, because kids, like, I'm responsible. It goes back to responsibility, right? Is, like my life would obviously be quite different. I grew up really fast. I took the responsibility of a dad really seriously. And so like my priority was to support and provide. And, so like that came at a really young age for him. And so he just said, if he could, he wouldn't have, he would have been more conscientious of what it meant to have kids, and probably been, I don't know, maybe more careful. But to me, it made sense. He goes, but, ask me now, do I regret having kids? And he's like, no, not at all. He's a proud dad. He's a very proud dad. I thought that was very interesting, the way he like compartmentalizes 2 different things. And it's the way you say it to not make you look like a bad parent, right? Yes. So I have 3 girls. They were all not planned. I, never planned on having children, and I was a young mom. So I'm opposite of Peter. Do I regret having kids? Yes, I do. If I had a chance to go back and change it, absolutely not. Now, and that's interesting to me, because you guys are answered the same question and 2 different answers, but arrive at the kind of somewhat the same place. So like for you, the regret is because of the challenges that you face. I think my biggest regret is just deciding to have a child at such a young age and not being able to finish college and have a better career to be able to provide a better life for my kids. Not that my kids have a life now that is bad. I did my best as a parent. I would like to think that I'm doing well. And same thing for, for my youngest. It's like the regret is that I was older. It was a decision that I did have to make if I wanted to move forward with the pregnancy. And I'm so happy and glad that she's here. She drives me crazy. She's a little nut. Yeah. But I think about it and I'm like, I cannot imagine my life not being a mom. Like, what would I be doing? Like, I'd be, I could travel, I could do this and that, but like. Very
self-absorbed though, right?
Yes.
Like, and that's like the other part, right? Is I think it goes back to timing. Like, for me, timing was super important because I knew it was going to take a lot out of me. I loved being an auntie for the longest time. Like, my sister had kids young. I enjoyed my nieces and I was the loving aunt, doting aunt. And I loved that role of playing that. But it's timing. As you mentioned, you were really young.
Yeah, I was 19. Yeah, right after high school.
I guess, that's tough because for me, I enjoyed, I didn't have Vanessa until I was like 30, almost 31. So there was a good chunk of it was just all about me. Right. And you didn't have that luxury, but you have, I think it's pretty cool because you're very similar to my sister where she has an adult child. Both of them are like her best friends, in some parts like her sisters.
Yeah.
And I can see that with you and your daughter, especially the last trip that you went out. You're like, we really hung out.
Haley, yeah. We went to Vegas and she's old enough to drink. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's definitely a give and take with that, right? The opposite answer that you provided was, if you could do it all over again, would you? And your answer is yes. And why is that?
Because I wouldn't be the person I am today. If I didn't have kids, I wouldn't be mentally strong. I wouldn't have the energy. I wouldn't have the drive to look out and seek another job that's going to make more money, to provide for my kids. I wouldn't have relived my childhood. Because like Disneyland, all the trips and all the museums we go to, it's like, oh my gosh. And just seeing things through like a little person's eyes, it's like you get to relive your childhood again. I didn't have the best childhood. Not that my parents were horrible or anything like that, but they were working parents. They worked all the time. And I've always wanted to be more of the attentive parent. We were in the PTA and, things like that. It wouldn't make me the person I am today. I'd probably, if I didn't have kids, I'd probably be super selfish. I would probably be a total bitch or something. I wouldn't have any patience. Having kids teaches you patience.
Yep.
Yep. So just things like that. So I think that's why I have the opposite effect.
That makes sense to me because it sounds like you like the person who you are today.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's great.
Yeah.
That is so good.
So let's jump into some articles that we've pulled up with other experiences. And you do have a couple of stats, right?
Yes. So an article from Time. It is unsurprisingly a challenge to get solid data on the number of parents who regret having children. In 1975, the popular advice columnist Ann Landers asked her readers if, given the chance to do it all over again, they'd have children. 70% said they wouldn't. This result, though, came from a group of self-selected respondents. Quote, the hurt, angry, and disenchanted are more inclined to write back than contented people, as Landers observed in a follow-up 1976 column. But in 2013, a Gallup poll asked Americans 45 and older how many kids they'd have if they could go back in time. 7% of the respondents with children said 0. And in 2023, which is very recently, a study estimated that up to 5% to 14% of parents in so-called developed countries, including the United States, regret their decision to have children. What do you think about that, Liza?
That's a lot higher than I thought. But it's probably because it's anonymous. Like who's gonna flat out be like, like show their face and be like, I regret having kids? And what do you think about that?
Well, it's so taboo because you know why? I think you don't want, obviously, your child to feel like there's a level of like there's a regret, right? And because it's actually not a personal to them. You know what I mean? But obviously children are children. And so therefore they're not going to, like for most, they don't understand the separation between.
Regretting and not wanting your kids are two different things, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's one thing for you to be like, I don't want my kids. But it's another, saying you regret having kids, it makes it sound a little better.
Well, I think there's a separation, right? Because, you love your kids, but the regret is more like how it affected you, not necessarily how you feel about them.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know how to rephrase it, but I think.
Well, they didn't ask for it.
Yeah, exactly.
They didn't ask for your opinion. They're there because of you.
Well, at some level, you made a decision. Mm-hmm. I think it's really hard. Most parents, even if they feel it, they can't say it, or they don't want to. They won't think of it because, again, they love their child so much. They're not going to be able to. They don't want a hurt feeling, right? Like they don't want their child to ever feel like they're not wanted. But I think they'll know when they have their own kids. That's the crazy part, right? You're not going to know until
exactly.
You're going to get it when you have your own kids.
Okay, so you talked about having Vanessa, or you wanted to have Vanessa. You wanted to have kids. Let's talk about people that wanted to have kids and then regretted it. So you sent us an article about the Stouffer family that adopted a child from China. Did you read that article?
So they adopted this child, and the child had special needs.
And they didn't know that until after.
They didn't know the extent of the special needs. That's kind of what they were saying is they didn't know what the extent was. They were disillusioned by the extent of the needs of that child. And so they basically returned the child.
Like it was a puppy in a shelter.
Yes. So I think that was kind of wild.
Yeah. I mean, on one hand, it's heartbreaking, especially for the child. It's like, you're a toddler, baby. You're loved by this family. You're cared for by this family. You finally have a home, only for them to turn around and be like, oops, like you're not the one for us. Right. But in the second hand, it's like, okay, if you can't emotionally and physically take care of this child with special needs, someone else will.
Yes. Yeah. And so it's, obviously I don't think and they got huge backlash for it.
Well, they were saying that they only did it for social, because they have a big social media presence. Yeah.
Yep. They have a big social media presence, and they had a huge backlash of people who just responded to that decision that they made. I can't imagine it. Who knows like how this plays out, right?
Well, I believe they had a bunch of their own kids too, but and you think like, okay, if it was your own child,
would you have done that?
You can't just return them.
Yes.
You can't just put him up for adoption, but because this kid isn't physically yours, like you had that option.
Yes. So I don't know. I struggle with that just because like I can see both ways. I really can. If you're not equipped and you feel like somebody else could, but like, I don't think I could do that to my own child. You know what I mean? So then if you put that out there, could you do that to your own child? I don't think so.
No.
I really don't, right? I think the caveat was this wasn't their child. And because if it's a child that you bore, it wouldn't have been an option, right? It just wouldn't have.
I mean, some parents actually put their kids like that in a home.
Yep.
Because they can't like deal with it, which is, it's sad. It happens, that's on the parent. If they have other things going, I don't know. If they have other things going on in their life that they can't deal with, mental instability in a child or things like that. But I mean, this is a whole new other thing. Like,
yes.
It's like there's a deep dive into exactly, it just depends on each situation. But in this family, it's like they were they happen to be in the spotlight, and it doesn't sound good. It doesn't look good, right?
Not at all. And I'm sure they braced themselves for when they made that decision, knowing that they are in the spotlight, that they were going to get this backlash. So,
and talking about social media, there are social media groups for parents that regret having kids. So
yeah, I know you sent it. And I'm like, what is this?
So
and
there's a subreddit called Regretful Parents. And there's actually a TikTok user named Kelly, I believe Danny, who's 45, doesn't have a child or is childless. And she actually reads off stories from the subreddit. So I'm going to read you one, Debbie, and you let me know what you think about this.
All right, go for it.
So the username is Hungry Caterpillar 89. Thankful. I just want to say how thankful I am for finding this group. I feel so seen. For the entirety of my parenting journey, I have dealt with deeply unpopular and scary thoughts of sheer regret. Angry regret, furious, irrational, deathly thoughts over my decision to become a parent. My life is permanently worse forever. I had no idea. I was lied to. I love my kids, but it is truly the worst decision I have ever made. Not everybody has to be a parent, and that's okay. Let's say it louder. Ouch.
She was very honest.
Okay, so my biggest thing is, okay, you have a regret like that, that's fine. But my fear is like, how are you treating these kids? Like, are you providing love for, if you hate being a parent this much, are you providing love for this child or your kids at home?
Well, she says, I love my kids. She says
it doesn't sound like it.
But see, here's the thing. Then that comes back to judgment.
Yeah.
That comes back to judgment that she's just being that's the whole point, right? Is she's being completely and totally honest about how she feels about being a parent and her decision. And now it's like, it's so easy for us to like jump in and say, whoa. But what if she's treating them great? She's just being completely honest. I actually didn't think that she could be a bad mom. I think her point was no one told her you don't have to have kids. Like, I think that's the other thing too. When I was growing up, I had this like beautiful picture of how my life was going to be. And I remember it distinctly because I was like, okay, I am going to go, finish school. Once I finish school, I'm going to find this, amazing guy. We're going to go ahead and get married, have a house, and then have kids. Well, let me tell you, I did not do it in any of that order at all. Like, I finished school. I didn't get married. I had a kid, it was completely different than what I had envisioned. Right. But as I was growing up, it never came to my mind about not having a kid. My idea of happiness was finding someone, getting a house, and having kids. Like, that was the epitome of what a happy life was. And obviously that has changed. I didn't even think about like traveling. I didn't think about half the things that I'm doing. And so I think that's what I took away from the article is she's saying it loud. Like, I think we're just programmed to have kids. Like, kids is part of life. And I think what she's saying is, no, it doesn't need to be. And so that is what I took away from what she's saying.
Do you think that a lot of it has to do with depression, postpartum depression?
I had postpartum. I know I did. And it was light. It wasn't severe. But I think part of it is just, it hits you all at once how your life has changed. There is no return button. Right? Like, there is really no return. And so life has changed. And even, we talked about this, even like with pregnancy, everybody like made it seem like it was just great. And like, for me, there was moments of greatness of a pregnancy, but it wasn't all great. And I can tell you, labor for me sucked.
When does it not suck?
Well, here's the thing, that there's going to be pain, but like for me, I was just not prepared for the invasion of my body, of my mind. Like, and I know they're nurses and doctors, but like literally strangers would come in, poking you, looking at you, like touching you. And it was just like, at some point you're just, you got to deal with that, right? You have to deal with that invasion. But it is like an invasion of like your whole personal being that I don't think I was even prepared for. And I don't think her dad even realized like how fucked up that was for me. I don't think even the guy knows how fucked up, like any guy knows how fucked up it is. for you to be invaded like that. But you do it because you know you have to push this child out into the world, right? And you want to, and you have no, literally is no choice.
You can't push that baby back in.
No. And obviously you want to do the best you can to make sure that this baby is healthy. So you just go along with it and you just like swallow all of that. I don't know. That was my experience.
Let me tell you. So I had postpartum depression with two out of the 3 girls. My first pregnancy with Haley, my oldest, I had severe depression, postpartum depression. There's this one instance that I will never forget. Haley was colicky, cried all day, all night for no reason. Doctors were like, you just have to let him cry. There's no cure for it. Being 19 years old, I remember like rocking her and just like in tears. My anxiety was through the roof. And I remember turning to my mom and saying, take her. I don't want her. I don't want this life. I don't want her. I don't want to be a mom. You should have seen my mom's face. She was like, what the fuck are you talking about? She's like, no. She's like, there's no turning back. This is your baby.
Yep.
I'm not taking your baby. You need to sit here and deal with this. This is your baby. You need to keep this baby alive. This is your daughter. And I mean, I just snapped out of it. And I was like, yeah, I mean, there's no turning back. Like, this baby depends on me and needs me. She didn't ask for this shit.
Yep.
You know, so I will never forget that. And my mom always reminds me, she's like, remember when you didn't want her? And I was like, remember when you tried to return her to me? And I was like, yes.
I'm glad she woke you up, because it is a responsibility that you signed up for. And trust me, there is so much. I know we're talking and it sounds like there's a lot of work. Absolutely. But there is just so much joy that they bring you as well. Like, my daughter is almost an adult and I get enjoyment of just, going into her room and kissing her good night and kissing her good morning. And there's just there is a feeling that you just can't get from anything else when you do that with your kids, right? So I'm so glad your mom woke you up, because
she looked like she was going to slap the shit out of me. She was like, what are you talking about? And she's like, you had options. We talked about your options. This is your option. You can't take it back. And I was like, okay.
And you said you snapped out of it.
Yeah.
And what does that mean? Because you're still dealing with like so many emotions. Did it just hit you like she's right?
Yeah. I just looked down at her and I was like, she's absolutely right. Like, this was my choice to have this child, knowing damn well that I'm young. Dad wasn't in her life. She relies solely on me to keep her alive. My mom's not going to do it for me. I mean, if she had to, she would. No one else is going to do it.
Yep.
So
parenting is wild.
Yeah.
My takeaway from that article you read was, you don't need to be a parent. And I think a lot of people feel like they get fulfilled. That's the only, the ultimate fulfillment is being a parent.
Yeah. Well, my younger sister, she's 34. Growing up, she had told me she'd always wanted to have kids. She would. She's engaged. And then she helped me raise my kids. And, she's 34. I'm like, hey, you're engaged. You're going to have kids. She's like, hell no. She's like, I helped you raise your kids. I've seen what you've gone through. She's like, I felt the love of having, they were like my kids. She's like, I'm good.
Wow.
Yeah. She's like, I'm good. I like having, my privacy. I like, going to your house and, spending time with your kids, having that love from someone else's kids. And she's like, no, I'm done. I don't want kids. So.
Well, to piggyback off that, I know more and more younger people that are very vocal about saying, I don't want to have kids. I don't think I want to have kids. And I'm like, are you sure? And they're like, yeah, as of right now, they're quite content. Like, kids are not in that picture of how they're going to live their life. And I think more young adults are seeing that. Obviously, there's still people who are growing up saying, I want to have kids. But there's, interestingly enough, a good amount that I know that actually don't want to have kids. Now, that might change as they get older. Who knows? But I think the realization is, for me, you have a choice, right? And I think what I'm hearing from you is you made a choice, own up to it.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it has to do now is, I think a lot of younger people now have divorced parents. You know, divorce divorce rate is very high. So I think, you know, I have divorced parents, and for my kids, I've always wanted my kids to have parents that were married and together. And I think that would be probably one thing that I would change if I were to go back, was that I would provide a home for them that had, you know, two loving parents. I mean,
but they do for sure. It's just different. It's just a different kind of parenting. But I think kids that come from divorced parents, they're more likely to be like, I want to make sure that if I have kids, they're going to have parents that are married together, because I don't want them to go through, you know, what I went through. Yep.
Also, you know, finances too. Having a kid is freaking expensive.
Yes.
Yeah. Very expensive, especially like this day and age with the economy.
And where we live.
Climate, you know, like climate change. We don't even know if this world is going to be here in you know, 15 years. Just everything that's going on in this world. Like I talk to younger, and, you know, I work at a high school, and they're like, no, like I would not want to bring them into the world that we live in now.
Well, we're overpopulated already.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, I don't know. For me, like I said, I was very conscientious of having a child. So I really feel like I made a responsible decision, but no one can ever really, you're not going to know until you're in it to realize how much responsibility it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting article.
Yeah. Definitely a lot to talk about. It's, you know, I guess that this could be debatable, but yeah, it is a very sensitive topic. You know, not a lot of people want to say it. It's something that should be talked about for sure.
Yes. And I think it's good. I think, again, maybe more anonymous, but just because you want to be sensitive to a child hearing something that they might not be able to really comprehend and understand. The separation between, you know, a parent saying they regret versus, well, that means that you just don't love me then. So
yeah. So the takeaway of this episode is, you know, parenting is a deeply personal journey. And it's essential to approach these discussions with compassion and understanding. If you're a parent struggling with regret or considering an adoption, remember that you're not alone, and seeking support is a sign of strength, not failure. Reach out to mental health professionals, support groups, or trusted individuals in your community. For those not in these situations, let's strive to create a society where all parents feel supported and where every child's well-being is prioritized. If you or someone you know needs help, there are resources available, and taking the first step can make a significant difference. Do you want to go over some of these resources that are here?
Yes. So, well, we'll list these out on Instagram, but a couple are obviously Postpartum Support International, which provides support for parents experiencing postpartum depression and other parental mood disorders. They offer online support groups and resources.
Yeah, and then also there are some, you know, Instagram accounts at Motherhood Understood, which is pregnancy/postpartum mental health support group. So, and then we'll list all the other ones that we have here on our Instagram. And again, thank you for listening.
Thanks for bringing up this taboo topic.